Welcome to Green Disruptors, where we spotlight innovators tackling some of the planet's most pressing challenges. Today I'm joined by Richard Simpson, Chief Revenue Officer of Zero Sound. Zero Sound is pioneering large-scale active noise suppression technology. Think of it as earbuds for industry, helping utilities, data centers, and energy facilities dramatically reduce noise pollution in surrounding communities. We'll explore how noise pollution impacts public health, why regulations are tightening, and how Zero Sound's breakthrough technology is reshaping the balance between industrial growth and community well-being. Well, welcome, Richard. Thanks for joining us today on Green Disruptors.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So give us a little intro. Tell us who you are.
Who am I? So
Deep
Richard
question.
Simpson. Yeah, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Zero Sound, and Zero Sound is an active noise suppression company. So we work with industry to help suppress noise pollution to communities.
Okay, so maybe we can start by saying why is noise suppression important when we're talking about climate?
About climate, well, that's an interesting one. At the end of the day, what we're looking at is an increase in the need for energy, and being as efficient as possible is an important thing. But as industry grows and community grows, the opportunities for collisions of those two things become greater and greater, and that's happening today. So, what we're trying to do is to allow organizations on the industrial side to be as efficient as they can be, and sometimes that means that their noise levels are too high, so noise pollution goes up, and we're helping them to be able to suppress that and allow communities to have a better life and a quality of life, because there are some crazy statistics that are starting to pop up around what noise pollution is creating to communities. So, it's all an ever-evolving thing, and every day companies are learning new things around what noise pollution is creating in the world of, for their industry and how it's impacting life.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of what kinds of things these studies are finding that are like the problems it's causing?
Yeah. So it's interesting. So there's the health issues related to nature, and there's health issues related to community. We do not deal with worker safety. We're not an OSHA type of scenario.
Right.
We're dealing outwardly, not inwardly for industry. But yeah, there's some interesting articles. Time Magazine and the New York Times have some articles around some issues in Texas where there is a Bitcoin mining installation that is quite a ways from a small town, but there is a low frequency hum that is emanating across the plain through the town, and there are all kinds of different issues that seem to be spiking as a result of it. Only happened after this facility went live. So people with anxiety, people with sleep issues, people that didn't have sleep issues are getting sleep issues.
Suddenly have them.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which creates anxiety, but also things like blood pressure. And if
Yeah.
you have a pre-existing issue that could be heart-related, we're seeing spikes in how people are needing more medical attention. It's, let's say it's anecdotal today because it's so new, but
Right.
it seems to be popping up in more and more places, let alone it's a regulated thing. Now, the problem with regulations is if there isn't a hammer being swung after the regulation is being enforced, it means there may not be such a motivation, especially if it costs money. Obviously, industry is always trying to figure out how to make their margins, which is fair, but you're starting to see more enforcement of regulations with stiffer penalties and fines.
Yeah. So give us kind of a glimpse into what the technology is, because I guess if you're thinking in terms of general noise suppression, you think putting panels on walls and building thicker walls and thicker doors. So tell us how this is different.
Sure. So our traditional competition is sound walls and berms and physical objects. So If you think about industry, and it could be a transformer station, it could be a battery energy storage system, it could be anything that makes noise. And then you've got an open space between it and a community. And a community can literally be one person, one house, or it could be a larger scale. So what we're doing is we're using active noise control, which is essentially what happens with your earbuds. So we call ourselves the earbuds for industry without earbuds. And we're essentially listening to a noise source, and then we will, in real time, send out the same frequency but inverted 180 degrees, and that's where you get the suppression of noise. So it's exactly what's happening in a nice little controlled environment in your ear, and we're achieving it in a much less controlled environment outdoors.
That sounds complicated. Well, I mean, this it makes sense you're canceling it out, but implementation wise, like tell us what that looks like at a site.
Yeah, so actually, we're less cumbersome than building a noise wall. So
Yeah, I
the
bet.
amount of engineering required, let alone materials and time to do that. We have a client in Chile that did an engineering study, and their study came back and said that they needed to build a 50-foot wall around their entire facility.
Wow. Mhm.
Massive
So
undertaking.
expensive.
Very expensive, but also it's a fully workable utility environment. It's a transformer station. So how do you do that? It's a dangerous environment. You can't take it offline because the population nearby needs the power. So very tricky. So for us, we are a much, much more agile technology, so far easier to put in place. And we're very targeted. So our panels are 1.5 feet square, and then
Nice.
we do a computer modeling of an environment to understand how is the noise propagating or moving around the environment, to understand where do we need to place our technology and how much do we need to put in place. So as an example, in Chile, the facility that we're working at, the first one in Ancoa, 3 different corners had houses nearby, and each one is a little bit different in size. So one has one system, one has 3 of our systems, and one corner has 5 of our systems. So we target it that way. The other interesting thing for us is that we are literally targeting the frequency, whereas a noise wall is literally standing in front of it. So low enough frequencies will travel right through, but they can also travel over and around because noise is very fluid. So we're targeting that specific frequency to take it down so it doesn't travel at a point where it's going to be noisy enough to be a problem.
Yeah. I can attest to that. I live near a little amphitheater, which actually is fun because we get to hear the concerts for free in my yard. But I mean, it's pretty far away, and like, I don't think a wall would stop that, you know?
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. So tell us about it, like, how long have you been around, and what are forming these initial partnerships looking like for you?
Sure. So we've been active since 2019, and we've been commercial for the last just over a year and a half. So we have 2 active deployments down in Chile now, and we're broadening our horizons in industry. Utilities is where we started, and now we're looking at things like data centers, the battery
Hmm.
energy storage systems, and getting into the oil and gas extraction side as well. We can target the full spectrum from downstream all the way upstream with different needs. So it's there's a lot of opportunity in the marketplace, and obviously with the greater demand for energy now, there are going to be and are already big increase in the number of issues or conflicts. So we were talking about this when we were having our pre-chat. There's a little cycle of where you have the power grid, which, depending on where you are in the world, is already stressed, and in some
Hmm.
places very stressed.
Yes.
Australia is an example, or California, if you look at the power grid there. So now you're looking at a far bigger demand for compute power, so data centers. So every time you use Perplexity or ChatGPT versus a Google search, it's over 10 times more of a drain on the system, and that's just ever increasing. Everyone is using it more and more and more. It's become the norm. So now you've got data centers that need power. So there are various ways to get power to them. It doesn't necessarily have to be the grid, but that is kind of the traditional and probably the most stable, versus in some instances they can go to things like natural gas and hydrogen, which is
Hmm.
viable. And then you have the battery energy storage systems. And the BESS systems are starting to supplement both data centers as well as the grid. So on the grid, they can allow an expansion of capacity by essentially storing power and then at high demand supporting the grid so that you don't have issues with brownouts, blackouts. And then on data centers, they can be a backup as opposed to having diesel generators and things of that nature, which are obviously quite a pollutant as well as quite noisy. But all of those different areas have potential for great noise problems. If they're far enough afoot, then it's not necessarily a big deal if a community isn't close enough or people aren't living close enough.
Right.
But with the increased demand and the increase, like I think the estimation is somewhere around $4 to $8 trillion in investment over the next 5 years, which is massive. And where I
In
live
data centers alone or in
in
energy?
in the cycle of all of that. So that's when you look at that, and I know in Texas they're making a big push to be a massive data center hub. Where I live in Alberta in Canada, again, we're trying to be the massive hub for Canadian data centers, but it's something that you can't just throw out. You need to do it very cautiously and be able to plan it appropriately, because you're going to run into bigger and bigger problems if you don't do it in a thoughtful manner.
Right. So this is where the regulations come into place. So, down in Chile, you told me they have different standards for noise pollution, so they're highly motivated to avoid fines and everything. So
Exactly.
what's the motivation for maybe people in the companies in the US to use your systems?
Sure. So there's a couple of different things that go there. One is the regulations vary drastically state to state, county to
Hmm.
county,
That's true.
and the hammer that is being swung is very different as well. So you could have minimal fines, which is minimal motivation for someone to change if
Right.
it's a significant investment. But then there's on the other side of whether or not there's a big enough push, depending on the business that they're in. There is a brand issue. So
Hmm.
if you are viewed as someone who is not really trying to do your best and you're
For
impacting
the
communities
communities. Yeah,
negatively, then the next time you go to get approval somewhere for a new facility, you may not get that approval, or
that's
there
a
may be
very good
greater
point.
restrictions. So everybody has to do. In industry, it's not unusual to have a noise impact assessment done pre-install of a location. They're
Mm.
notoriously not correct. And especially when you're dealing with new technologies, it's really hard to predict. So when we're talking to clients, we'll ask for as much information as we can so our engineers can assess what the issue is, because it's not always what they think it is. And so we'll get these noise impact assessments, which are good, but they don't give us the details to the level that we require. We actually need sound samples, and
Right.
those sound samples tell us what we really need to do.
And it
In
makes
some
sense that they
instances,
wouldn't have that until it's complete.
well, and when people do sound studies, so there's lots of companies out there, consulting engineering companies that do these impact assessments for noise. They don't provide sound samples to their clients because clients don't know what to do with them. So we end up asking our client to either go back to their assessment company or to do it themselves and provide us with sound samples. And that way we can actually really understand to the level that we need what that sound is made up of. How
Hmm.
dynamic is it? What is the frequency? What is the fundamental frequency? And that allows us to be able to then digitally essentially model the environment that we're asked to look at and then put the sound in so that we can see how does it reflect off things, how is it moving around that environment, and again that's what tells us where and how much of our tech we need to deploy. So it's a very complicated thing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of math behind it. But otherwise, if it was easy, we'd have competition coming out of our ears. But today, we're the only large scale digital solution in the marketplace. So we're trying to run as quickly as we can before competition comes up. It will, which we're prepared for. But and we have a good moat of intellectual property behind our tech as well. So
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that that running. So you want to be able to scale this, as quickly as possible to kind of maintain your corner of the market. What are kind of the biggest challenges you're facing with that right now?
Uh, Biggest challenges, probably one would be education. So we are an entity that a lot of organizations don't exist with a solution that they don't know exists. So, putting in noise walls is a commonplace, or building a berm around a fracking site. These things are all just a matter of fact to industry. So, interestingly, one of the great things is we have a lot of people that are coming to us because they find us out on the web, and they see that we are a very different solution to what's out there. But geography becomes a tricky thing. So, deploying in Chile for us was not the easiest. It basically takes you a day to get there from here.
Yeah,
Obviously, when you're dealing with customs and shipping and things of that nature, there are certain foibles and problems. We just had a package broken into and parts stolen on our last shipment to
no,
Chile. So these things happen. But yeah, time zones also become an issue. But one of our biggest opportunities there, and you kind of brought it up in the tail end of one of your questions, was around partners and how do we grow. How do we grow geographically without having to make our team massive here to support it and travel
right.
like crazy? Is partnerships. So in Chile, we've built a partnership with a company that is supporting us there. So there are boots on the ground and first level support for clients, and then we're the secondary support to them. Worst case scenario, obviously, we would send people down, but they're doing great, so we don't need to. And we're looking at the exact same situation for Europe, and Australia is a big market that we're looking at as well, which obviously is halfway around the world for us. So
Yeah,
getting our feet on the ground there and finding a partner swiftly will be an important thing because they have a huge need for being able to expand their grid. Solar is a great thing for them, but and to leave that to the side, but it has its own noise problems as well. So yeah, partnerships is the big thing, but at the end of the day, you've got to get out in the marketplace, and travel is important. So we do travel when we have to, and to get in front of clients because building that relationship face to face is incredibly important. COVID was one good thing that came out of COVID, shall we say, is the fact that this type of opportunity has become more commonplace. So clients understand Teams meetings are kind of the
part of
natural.
life.
But at the end of the day, to solidify a relationship, especially when someone's looking to make a big investment in purchasing our product, then being face to face to start that relationship in one of the first couple of steps is very important. And
Yeah,
our
I
government
agree.
supports us quite nicely for that, which is we thoroughly happy about that. So getting support for getting into international markets is a big thing that both our province as well as our federal government support. But at the end of the day, we still have to put a lot of money out there as well.
Yeah. So who is the ideal partner? Like, let's use Australia as an example.
The ideal partner. That's an interesting one because they do kind of look and feel a little different depending on where we've gone. But we need people that have a good understanding from an engineering level of sound. And so often they will be companies that do the sound studies, ironically. So they could end up getting paid by our clients as well as by us to support us. Um, but they understand the intricacies, let's say, of how sound travels and the dynamics of sound, and and they have that good engineering background. So we train them obviously on the complexities of our technology, and we're getting closer and closer to our technology being, let's say, plug and play, so much
Hmm.
easier to install. We're already quite easy to install, but the calibration and commissioning of our tech right now takes a few steps, and we just need to teach them what that looks and feels like. And obviously, we provide them with all of the modeling understanding as well. So really, that's what a strong partner looks like, and so far we've been quite lucky.
Very cool. Um, I'd be curious how many of those kinds of companies exist, probably more than people would realize.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we've covered a lot in the we don't have too long today, so we'll kind of wrap up. But if you could end by maybe what your hopes are for the next year, where do you hope to be a year from?
Whew, that's a large question. Uh, we expect to be deployed in quite a number of client sites. We have a lot of POCs that we're working on with clients right now. So we expect to be establishing in South America. So we have a lot of work still growing in Chile. We're working with some companies in Colombia. Uh, and those are in the energy side, on more focused on the grid. Um, we have a lot of work happening around the US and Canada, focused on the energy and extraction side of life. And that's a newer part to our technology. So there's some advancements that we're working on to be able to deal with far more dynamic sites. So that's exciting for us for new emerging markets. And we're, not to let the cat out of the bag, but we're looking at establishing an HQ in Australia.
Very cool.
And we're going to be there in September. We've started the ball rolling, and that is a big market. They have a huge pent up need. Their grid is quite fragile. Solar is really helping them out. They're one of the countries that can really excel from solar, but it's not enough. So they have just an enormous number of BESS systems that they're looking to deploy in the near future, and big deployments. And that'll be supporting both the grid as well as the data center side, because everyone
Yeah.
wants data centers. So yeah, global domination is where we're heading, and working on a couple of partnerships in the European market. So we expect to have a pretty solid footprint by the next 12 months passing.
Well, that is very exciting, and global domination is a great, great note to end on. So, we wish you the best of luck, and thanks for making everyday people's lives more calm and noise polluted. So, thanks for joining me today, Richard.
Well, thanks for having me on.
That was a pleasure.
That was Richard Simpson from Zero Sound, showing us how innovation can make our world both more efficient and more livable. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Green Disruptors wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know someone passionate about sustainability, energy, or new technologies, share this episode with them. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.